Hey everyone, welcome back to SoCal Sports Report. I'm here with my co-host Bobby DeMuro, and I'm Ailis Garcia. And this is the furthest we've actually sat away from each other, but we've always sat super close.
I can't hear you. Are you talking? What?
I feel like you're distancing yourself.
That was like an awful old person
about
joke.
This. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you are a few years my senior.
2.
2?
How old are you?
I'm 23.
Ah, crap. 4.
Yep.
All right, fine.
There we go.
God.
Makes
You're
of an old
23.
man.
You're 23, and this is as far as you made it. Whew, pretty
I know,
depressing.
Right? Got a ways to go. Well, anyways, we've got a great show for you guys today. We're talking lots of basketball, 2 key players, and a little bit of baseball too. So let's kick it right off. Pau Gasol. It seems like before the deadline hit, every week he was going to be traded to a different team. And, it was that week. It's, Pau Gasol's leaving, say goodbye to LA. Where is he going? But he's still here. What's going to happen at the end? He said he wants to win over a big payday.
Yeah.
So will he stay with the Lakers or will he go to another team?
That's actually a tough question. First off, it depends on D'Antoni. If D'Antoni stays, maybe Gasol goes. If D'Antoni goes, maybe Gasol stays. I think realistically, my opinion, I think they both go. And the reason being Gasol's 34, which is not young, but it is also not old. So he's got, 3 or 4 years left maybe as a big man.
Right.
He's productive. I mean, 17 and 10 this year. Find big men who give you 17 and 10 every night. It's not as many as people like to think. It's a select group. There's 12 guys like that in the NBA.
Well, especially for his age, though. That's amazing.
And his consistency level at that age. I think, though, that what the Lakers should do is go get younger and go get Kevin Love, either via trade in the next year or next summer. Go get Kevin Durant maybe the summer after that. Go get Carmelo. Go get whoever else. People have talked about smaller pieces like a Kyle Lowry. The point is the Lakers need to get younger as they transition out of the Kobe Gasol era. And
Right.
Gasol doesn't help them get younger. Now, if he stays, am I going to be mad? No, because he's good.
Right.
I just think the Lakers' priorities have to be Kevin Love, Kevin Durant, etc. And if Gasol comes back, that's great too. And if he doesn't come back, no hard feelings. You did really well for us. We'll see you around. Have a great rest of your career kind of idea.
I like that idea, but I think he should stay at least one more year. I like Gasol. I think he's great for the franchise. I think players like playing with him, especially Kobe. Kobe has backed up Gasol so many times, especially when, all these trades were supposedly going to happen. And he's a good teammate. They play well together. And, Kobe doesn't back up a lot of people, as we've seen now with Nick Young. He doesn't support a lot of people. And so I think that they would work really well together. I say keep him one more year and then go get Love.
Well, and that's the thing with Gasol too, is he has a great person in his corner in Kobe. And Kobe has been so vocal for him, and he and Kobe play really so well together when they're both right, that it does make sense to keep him, and it does make sense to keep him for another year.
Especially now that Kobe's coming back.
Because Kobe's back, and Love won't be here yet, barring a trade. Kevin Durant won't be here yet. Carmelo may not be here at all.
I think he's going to stay in New York.
I don't know if Phil Jackson will keep Carmelo in New York.
True. He's a New York guy, though.
He is a New York guy. I don't know if Phil Jackson will keep him in New York, and I don't know if they actually want him that much anymore in L.A.
Well,
I don't know. Talking to people on Twitter.
Maybe Lala.
Listen.
Lala comes out to L.A. a lot. She's friends with Kim Kardashian. Maybe she can...
Well, not to get too far off the Gasol subject, but with Carmelo, the reason he wanted out of Denver in the first place, not only was he a New York guy, he wanted to be in a big media market.
Yeah.
And at the time, New York had the right trade pieces, so he knew he could go there. And his wife was doing the MTV thing, and she wanted to be in a big media market. So if she drives him to L.A., maybe.
Hey, but now with Phil Jackson in New York, that brings up the basketball stakes in New York a lot. Now you have 2 big markets potentially going to be competing against each other, which before that wasn't really the case.
And it should have been a third, but Derrick Rose cannot get healthy in Chicago. Although Chicago's decent and Joakim Noah's playing his face off. But yeah, the big markets in the NBA, it's a good time to be there. To get back to Gasol, I see what you're doing. You got me on the Knicks already. We're going to talk about Phil Jackson in a couple weeks. Just be patient.
Hey, let's get Ben Lyons on the show. He's a Knicks fan.
The thing that I see about Gasol, more than any of this sort of stuff, is I wouldn't be mad if he came back. I mean, not even that. I would be happy if he came back because he's good. But I think that their priority has to lie in getting younger and getting better when they're young.
I agree. I mean, they have to get younger. Kobe's not getting younger. Kobe's getting older. And now's the rebuilding phase.
Yeah.
You've seen the team fall apart this year. They need to rebuild. They need to go young. They need to just start start that going.
Yeah,
We
and
need to
Steve,
get it going.
and look, Steve Nash really hurt him. Steve Nash has been injured, it seems like forever. That's another older guy.
How old is Steve Nash?
But that's the thing. Do you want to deal with that potentially with Gasol in the next year or two again?
Don't.
I think you jettison these guys when you can. Gasol's been great. If he will take less money, then okay, we'll talk about whatever X dollars the Lakers decide to spend.
You know, he said he's willing to. He wants to win versus getting a big payday.
Yeah.
So maybe he is willing, and I think Kobe would talk him into it.
Speaking of Kobe talking, our second topic's interesting. Ailis, tell us what you think about Kobe talking.
Kobe's been talking a lot lately, and I kind of feel like it's a little too much.
So you think Kobe's doing too much talking because he can't play?
Yes, exactly.
Too much talking.
He is the face of the team, but this year he's been hurt, so he hasn't been on the court. He hasn't been playing, so he has all this time on his hands to talk. And, a couple of weeks ago, he said how, the organization needed to change from the top down, and then he came back and he kind of retracted that statement.
Yeah.
And so, he's been talking a lot. He's been making business deals, which I think is great. We'll get to that later. But I don't know. I feel like he might be a little too vocal right now.
A little too vocal. You were going to get like 1,000 people on Twitter who say,
"People are going to hate me." I love Kobe. Let me just say this. I love Kobe. I think his work ethic is unmatched by other players. He's the first one, when he's healthy, he's the first one to get there. He'll stay there all night to keep practicing. That's amazing. I admire that. And, his talent, obviously, he's a natural.
Yeah.
And so, as far as his basketball skills, that's how I feel. But right now, he has all this time on his hands, and maybe that's what you do when you have all this time on your hands. But is it his place and position to be talking so much?
I think so. I think he's earned it. I mean, obviously, you can talk about championships and points and MVPs and all this stuff. I just think generally he's earned it because he is whether he's the de facto captain or not, he is the leader of this team, and he is the best player on this team, and he is the most important player on this team. So the way Kobe goes, the team goes, and I think it's actually good that he's talking. If he were injured for the last 2 years, pretty much, which he has been, or the last calendar year, 2 years in seasons, if he weren't talking and he were just rehabbing and doing his thing and not involved and not around and rehabbing on his own, I think that's more of a danger, because how much is this guy involved? Does he care about where this team is going? Does he have any investment in this team at all anymore?
Right. Well, off of your point, Jeannie Buss didn't talk for a year. And everybody was like, well, what's going on? Why didn't you talk? We want to know what's going on. We want to see your face out there.
Exactly.
You're the face. You're the ownership. What's going on? And so now that she finally has spoken, I think people are a little happier. There's more clarity to things, and people know what's going on now, I think. Off of your point, I could see how it's a good thing that he's talking.
And I think it's a great thing he's talking. I think he should be talking. Maybe, obviously, watch maybe a little what he says about the top-down thing or whatever, and maybe he did kind of overspeak. It
seems like maybe that
one
might have happened, and Jeannie or, someone came in and said, hey, you want to go fix what you said.
But besides that, I think it's good he's talking because it shows he wants to get back. And to me, it really shows how motivated and how passionate he's going to be when he gets back. And I think, I know he doesn't have too many years left, he's going to be a monster next year. If he's healthy the whole year, I think he's going to be a monster.
I hope so. I hope he comes back and has a great season, a great, 2 seasons.
And they need it badly, especially next year.
But look at Jeter.
Yeah, that's true. And Jeter didn't have the same severe injuries that Kobe did. That is true. These guys, when it's over quickly. Look at basketball players. Look at Tracy McGrady, Allen Iverson, whoever you want to talk about. Now, I know those cases may be a little different than Kobe, but when it's over, it is over quickly. The alternative to that is look at Vince Carter. High flyer for a long time, then got injured, then kind of everybody forgot about him. He's still actually really good in Dallas, and that team's fighting to the death for a playoff spot. And I know he's not a superstar, but doing what Vince Carter does now is incredibly valuable to Dallas, and he's still doing it, and he's about 50 years old. I think he's actually 37. But the point is there are guys who can just hang on and hang on and hang on. And if Kobe takes, whether or not it's a diminished role, but if he takes a more realistic view of his physical capabilities as a 37, 38-year-old, I think he can still be exactly what they need.
And I hope he does take a realistic view. I hope he is realistic about it. And
Well, and that's an interesting point because Allen Iverson's career ended so abruptly to us as fans because he was not willing to go to the bench. He was not willing to be a sixth man. He was not willing to mentor guys. Now, Kobe, no one's asking Kobe to go to the bench, but you can do less as you get older after major injuries. So can Kobe take a realistic view about what he can do, or is he going to expect to play 40 minutes every night?
Which is really interesting because, when you're a veteran on a team, you don't have to be I feel like coaches know that you don't have to drill those veterans down to the ground every single day like you have to do with rookies or younger players. And so I wonder how that's going to be with Kobe back in practices and back practicing with younger guys. Is he going to be full throttle every day, or is he going to be like, okay, you know what? I'm good. Today's great practice. Let's play, and then tomorrow I practice again. So it'll be interesting to see how he actually practices and gets ready for games too. And if knowing Kobe, he's going to want to be in the entire game.
I think final word on Kobe, and then we'll move on to our third topic. But I think, to me, I don't know if they'll be able to contend next year. It depends on what they do this summer. It depends on trades and whatever. And I don't think you can call the Lakers, at least not looking ahead right now, a contention team.
Right.
But I think Kobe is going to sell out and say, I've got one more chance. This has to be it. And I think he comes out on fire next year.
It's a lot of Laker talk, but, that's what we talk here in LA. So,
sorry, Clippers fans. We'll talk about them next week, though.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot next week, so you'll have your say.
Yeah, well, let's go down south a little bit, Orange County, where we're at today.
Gross.
Right down the street, Angels play at Anaheim Stadium. Let's talk about Mike Trout.
Mike Trout, okay, the greatest baseball player ever. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but seriously, this kid's a stud.
No, I agree.
Man. A total stud.
He's my age.
That's the thing. The reason you know he's a stud is because not only is he young and he's been doing it for a couple of years, but look at how other players talk about players. A lot of times guys will say, oh, he's good, he's whatever.
But when players admire the way that you play, especially older players and even players of the same age, and when players on another team talk about you that way,
listen, following the Rockies in spring training because I'm the world's biggest Rockies fan.
You are.
Besides Dinger, their dinosaur mascot. Seriously, they have a dinosaur who's their mascot. It's awesome. Besides Dinger, I'm the biggest Rockies fan. And following them in spring training, after they played the Angels, this is about a week ago, every Rockies player just raved about how professional, how athletic, how strong, how fast Mike Trout is. And when other players do that and go out of their way to say that stuff, you're a stud.
Yeah.
The Angels have a stud. The question is...
But they know it, though.
Oh, they absolutely know it. They signed him to the 1 year. Thing. They gave him $1 million this year, which is not a lot of money, especially considering Miguel Cabrera's $700 billion contract.
Well, what's going on in Mike Trout's head right now?
Listen, if you're Mike Trout, if Cabrera at 30 or 31 gets 10 years, potentially valued at $352 million when it's all said and done, I'm sure he probably won't get all that. But if Cabrera gets 350 and a base of 290 or whatever it is.
At 31.
At 31. At 23, Mike Trout should get 10 years at $400 million. I'm not even kidding. I don't know the Angels would actually give him that much money, but if he did, that's one guy I'd be like, okay.
It would make sense.
Yeah, it
because
honestly
a lot of people right now don't think that Cabrera's deal is making any sense at all. Who gives a 10-year contract to a 31-year-old?
Actually, the Angels do.
Yeah,
remember Albert Pujols? See, that's the thing. That's the one problem with the Angels.
So the Angels would be
if anybody's dumb enough to give a 10-year contract besides apparently the Tigers, it's the Angels. Because they've done it already.
They have, and hopefully Pujols actually pulls through this year. Which it looks like, after spring training, it looks like Hamilton and Pujols actually are on their way back up and are actually going to perform this season.
I agree. I think they will each do a little bit better. I think Hamilton, to me, has been declining for a little while and won't ever be really the same guy he was in that home run derby and for that half year in Cincinnati and that first year in Texas. He'll never kind of do that again, but he can still be more than sufficient. And I think Pujols will have a good year. Right. Trout is such a stud. Lock the guy up. Obviously, the 1 year, $1 million arbitration contract was doing that. They're on their way. So they're going to sign him to an extension or a new contract at the end of the year. But lock this guy up. I wouldn't bat an eye if you gave this guy 10 years. $400 million is ridiculous, maybe. But he might get it. You never know.
That would be the biggest contract 100%. Deal in sports history.
$40 million a year. Oh, God, when A-Rod on that big contract got, $25 million a year, and everybody was shocked. Mm-hmm. And now Cabrera's going to end up getting a base of 29 or 30 or whatever it is. Now. Yeah, his is the biggest one now. Kershaw got the huge deal, but it's not like this.
Yeah, it's definitely not like this. I wonder what Kershaw's thinking.
Well, for a pitcher, Kershaw got the best deal. True. Yeah, I mean, hey, Kershaw's happy anyways. The one thing I'll say about Trout, and it's not just, he's a really good player or whatever. The good thing for me with Trout is for a power hitter, A, he hits for average as well, which we know, average and power, that's great. But B, and a little more technically, his strikeout to walk ratio is approaching 1-to-1. It's not as close as you'd want it to be at 1-to-1, but relative to other power hitters in the game, he does not strike out. He's young and he doesn't strike out, and he's a power hitter and he doesn't strike out. Those two things tell me he's incredibly mature as a hitter, he's already incredibly good as a hitter, and he will only continue to get better down the road. Look at other great power hitters and other hitters for average even. Today in baseball, in Major League Baseball, everybody strikes out a lot. And that's just part of the game. Trout doesn't do it as much. That tells me he's patient. That tells me he's more developed.
Specimen.
He's like an alien, okay? He's from New Jersey, so he is an alien.
He's from a different part of the country.
Yeah, New Jersey people are weird. So
he's not a Jersey boy.
Yeah, no, he's definitely he's going to be a Southern California boy for the rest of his life with this next contract. But he's locked this guy up. He's legit. He is so fun to watch, and he is the Angels. I don't know if it's the Angels Puig. He maybe could be like the Angels Adrian Gonzalez. Yeah, true professional guy, great player, great baseball player. I love him. And
everybody on the team loves him, and I think he is his heart is in SoCal.
Now, does Jerry DePoto actually sign him?
I think so.
Do you think – my concern is the Angels obviously are going to get the deal done during the year, because if at the end of this one-year deal and he goes into free agency or whatever, who knows who's – the Yankees could give him $700 million. I may not even be exaggerating, but who knows what could happen. So I think they'll get it done during the year. By the time this show goes up 6 days from now, he may actually have gotten it done.
Why this contract went down and why it was for $1 million, because I think a lot of people don't understand the way arbitration works.
So basically, when you are a baseball player coming up, Trout got drafted, got a signing bonus, which not all guys do, went through the minors. He was had a very brief time in the minors, and then got to the major leagues. And when you get to the major leagues, your service time starts, and you have so many years of Major League service time at the minimum contract, which right now is around, I think, $500,000. It creeps up every so often. And yeah, that's right. The minimum is $500,000.
Minimum, yeah.
That's good. That's our minimum contract too.
You're making a day.
Yeah. That's what Cabrera's now going to make
exactly. Per second.
And then after a few years of minimum service time, you become arbitration eligible, and you can negotiate contracts or become a free agent or whatever it is. With very, very good players, the Colorado Rockies just did this with Troy Tulowitzki. The Tampa Bay Rays just did this with Evan Longoria. This gets done actually a lot nowadays with prospects. With very good players, they will bump up their arbitration clock, and instead of letting them go through all of arbitration, teams will say, you're obviously good, you're obviously a star, we want you for a long time. Here is a big contract already, and we'll kill your minimum contracts, and we'll give you this X amount of dollars, and we want to sign you for a long time. Trout got $1 million.
And that stops the clock.
No more minimum time, but at the end of that new contract, you're a free agent, theoretically. Trout did that, just got $1 million this year, which is the Angels, I think, sort of a stopgap way of saying, here's $1 million in good faith. We're going to sign you to a big extension during the season, but we want to start to show you that you are obviously part of our long-term plan.
Yeah, you have to show players that, too. Yeah. You can't just keep them hanging either, you know, especially when they're performing to the level that Trout is performing.
Look, and not to be too much on the Rockies, because most people don't follow the Rockies, but Ubaldo Jimenez, who is now in Cleveland and is doing pretty well, he was with the Rockies. The Rockies in that year signed Carlos Gonzalez and Troy Tulowitzki to these long-term deals to kill the arbitration clock because they were superstars. They didn't sign one with Jimenez, and Jimenez knew it, and they traded him at the deadline because he didn't figure out into their long-term plans. So this, with what the Angels are doing with Trout, obviously says, we're not trading you. We're not ever going to let you go as a free agent if we can help it. We want you around for your career because you are a stud. Mm-hmm. Here's the first $1 million, which is going to be nothing compared to what he makes.
Right, $1 million is pennies.
Next couple of years, it's going to be a lot. But here's the first $1 million. This is in good faith or whatever. And we want to talk extension during the year or get a big deal done after the year.
So, yeah, let us know actually what you think the Angels are going to sign Trout to when that time comes. For how many years, how long, and also for how much. I think that's going to be a good topic of discussion in the comment section.
I'm half kidding, but 10 years, $400 million. My only question is, would anybody go more than a 10-year contract? He's 23. You could give him 12. He'd only be 35. Would you give him a dozen years?
What's the long? Is 10 years?
I think 10's pretty much the longest. Pujols got 10. Cabrera got 10. I don't remember anybody ever getting more than 10.
Right. I just think long-term contracts now are just.
If you're asking my personal opinion,
and just you don't know what's going to happen. There's so much that can happen, and you sign this deal, and then all of a sudden someone gets hurt. They could be an amazing player.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully Trout does not get hurt, but he could get hurt and be done.
Yeah, and you may never be the same player, or at least not at that level or whatever.
And you're stuck with the player.
The big thing for me against signing long-term contracts, there are very few guys you do it for. Troy Tulowitzki with the Rockies was one. He's the best shortstop in baseball, despite what the Rockies are doing on the field. Trout is another. I think Trout's one of those very, very rare guys you do this for. Cabrera, for me, was not one. Not a 10-year deal.
What about Pujols?
Not at 30, 31. If he was 25 and the Cardinals had given him 10 years, I said, okay. But not at 30 or 31 when the Angels did it.
I think there's a smart time to do it, and they're doing it now, or hopefully will do it with Trout.
And I think there's a smart time to incentivize these guys, which sounds goofy. If you get $30 million a year, theoretically you're incentivized. But in baseball, if you sign a 10-year, $300 million deal, well, okay, you're going to get that money anyways because it's not like football.
Complacent. You sit back, hey, I'm getting it, so whatever happens, happens.
Teams do this a lot with relief pitchers. They'll only sign them to one-year deals because they want to, A, incentivize those guys to do well, and B, potentially sign new guys the next season. So keep incentivizing these guys, and you wouldn't give Trout 1 year. But keep incentivizing these guys. Give them 5 years at, $200 million maybe. Give them $40 million a year, but for 5 years, and then say, okay, we'll talk 4 years from now because we want to keep you incentivized to keep doing well for us and performing and get your next big contract.
Yeah.
It's just
Which
business.
I think is great. And we'll talk about business in the next couple of episodes too. Got a lot of great stuff coming up. And if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, make sure to let us know. Tweet us at
SoCal Sports TV.
Yes. Or leave comments in the comment section below. We love interacting with you guys. And our fan base is kind of growing.
It's getting bigger. A lot of Laker fans, a lot of Dodger fans, but we're talking little Angels right now. So if you want to talk more Angels stuff or have ideas for shows with Angels content, let us hear it because we would love to talk pretty much anything California sports.
Right. So you have it right here, SoCal Sports Report. We'll see you next week.